I trust you've had yourself a wonderful day this 17th of February 2025, just days after Raila Odinga conceded defeat to Mahmoud Ali Yusuf of Djibouti in the AUC race. That conversation will be what we'll be discussing tonight on the Daily Report in the Power and Politics segment. We speak to international relations experts on what exactly was the mishap and how Kenya can advance and ensure that perhaps even in the future such mishaps don't happen, considering that this was the second attempt. Also, what is with the ministry and what are the concerns that we are hearing regarding Kenya's political image and diplomatic image as well? We will be having that conversation tonight as we also listen to what the Prime CS said over the weekend. That and much more coming your way right here on the Daily Report. Good evening and welcome. My name is George Maringa. On sign language interpretation is Catherine Simalaw. Here is what is making headlines tonight. Tonight, Malava MP Moses Malulu Injendi dies at Aga Khan Hospital in Nairobi. National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula confirms. Also tonight, former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu has appealed against a 12-year jail term. Plus, National Assembly dismisses plans to oust Speaker Moses Wetangula. And clinical officers threaten to start another strike tonight, accusing the government of failed implementation of resolutions between governors and the Ministry of Health. We thank you for choosing TV47 to inform you on the socials. You can find us at TV47 News KE, at George Maringa _. Please use the hashtag Daily Report. If you choose the SMS line, which will be on your screens shortly, start with your name, where you're watching us from, followed by your question, comment, or feedback regarding the program. Tonight, our WhatsApp number will also be on your screens shortly. A Bomet Low Court has today slapped a middle-aged man with a punitive sentence of 150 years for the death of his 3 children aged between 5 and 12 years in 2019. And as Willie Dennis Njiru now reports, the mother of 3 boys says she is contented with the sentence.
Before Principal Magistrate Julius Kipkosgei, 40-year-old Bernard Kirui was presented before this Bomet court for his judgment following the conclusion of a hearing of a case where he was accused of killing his 3-year-old children between 12, 8 and 5 years in 2019. Sharon Cherono, the mother to the slain children, expressed her contentment of the 150 years incarceration verdict by the court that has taken 7 years to conclude. Serenity delivered by family spokesperson Willie Chesere. Homicide and femicide cases in the country have been on the rise, with the clergy called to mitigate increasing disputes in families. For TV47, I'm Willie Dennis Njiru.
Thank you, Willie Dennis. Tonight, the Member of Parliament for Malava, Malulu Injendi, has passed on. The third-term Member of Parliament died in Nairobi while receiving treatment. President William Ruto has led Kenyans in mourning the MP, terming him as a selfless Member of Parliament. National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula confirmed the death and termed him as a dedicated member who served with integrity.
Familia imecharibu. Watu wote wamecharibu, hata wale ambao wanafanya kazi na mheshimiwa. Tumekuwa Nairobi kwa muda mrefu, tumewapata huko tukitembea pamoja.
Mimi jina langu ni Elijah Sambula kwa Alanda. Mimi ndio ndugu ya mheshimiwa Moses Malulu. Tumepoteza tumesikitika. Nimesema mahali mheshimiwa alikuwa amefika, sio rahisi kupata mtu mwingine afika mahali kama pale. Na hakuna la kusema, hakuna la kufanya. Yale Mungu amefanya, sisi tutaungana nayo. Na namuomba tu watu wale wamekuja kutusaidia matanga, wale watakuja kutusaidia matanga. Hii matanga tulie pamoja, tulie na heshima, tusiwe na ubaguzi wowote kusema huyu mtu usiki yako namna gani. Yote yale mnasema tukue kitu kimoja. Tuwe marafiki wa hii matanga mpaka wakati tutamaliza. Na tungojee mwelekeo utakuwa ukitoka huko juu. Hii matanga ni ya kiserikali. Yale watasema na tufuatane na tufanye kazi pamoja. Asante sana. Mheshimiwa ameungua ugonjwa, ni karibu mwezi mzima kama mgonjwa. Wakati nilienda kumuona nilipata ati alikuwa na ugonjwa yule unaitwa bakteria. Alikuwa na ugonjwa ukafanya pressure yake ikawa chini. Alikuwa na ugonjwa ya malaria. Wakati nilitoka huko walisema wamejaribu kurekebisha, amekuwa sawa. Hata mimi nikatoka huko kama niko na roho ya nguvu. Kidogo tumekaa tukifikiria atakuja amuka, tulikuwa tunasikia tu saa yote patwa.
May his soul rest in peace. Former Baringo Senator William Cheptumo will be laid to rest on the 1st of March 2024 at his home in Baringo. The planning committee, chaired by former cooperatives and MSME's Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui, said burial arrangements are ongoing both in Nairobi and Baringo to facilitate for a seamless send-off ceremony. Tinderet constituency legislator Julius Meli will lead parliamentary group with providing necessary assistance during the burial arrangements.
Will be on Saturday, the 1st of March 2025 at East Partabwa Ward Home in Baringo County. Nairobi Church funeral service will be on Thursday next week, the 27th, 2025 at Milimani AIC Church, and the time will be 10 a.m. Friends and relatives and planning committee will be meeting from Tuesday, February 18, 2025, Wednesday, Thursday this week, and Tuesday, February 25 from 4:30 p.m. We'll keep updating Kenyans on the progress of the burial programs on a regular basis, but take note that other meetings will be taking place simultaneously at his home in Baringo, that is to know your home, and in Cabernet.
So there are stages. There are committee of the Senate, there will be committee of Parliament as a whole, there will be this committee led by Chelugui, there will be also a committee in Baringo County, and there will be a committee at home, all working in coordinating the events for the burial for Honorable Cheptumo. In fact, in the executive, PS Bitok will be coordinating the national executive.
Very good man, a reconciliatory person, a person who wished so well to all of us, a person who would always guide, give us advice as our elder. Some of us call him dad or our father. And we will miss him as a people of Baringo and also as Kenya, because he's contributed so much to this country.
Family members of Nakuru Civil Society, together with people living with disabilities, staged a protest in Nakuru demanding for justice over the disappearance of Mercy Chepngeno's body, a 7-month-old child who died at the Nakuru Level 5 hospital. Chichi Josephine now reports from Nakuru.
Weeks after the disappearance of Mercy Chepngeno's body at the Nakuru Level 5 hospital, the family, alongside activists and people living with disabilities, staged a protest in Nakuru over the stranger disappearance. The deaf community held a peaceful protest in solidarity with Mercy's parents demanding answers on the whereabouts of Mercy's body, a 7-month-old baby who died at the Nakuru Level 5 hospital and later preserved at the said hospital mortuary.
Our goal is that we need to get our child. That's our main point for today. Our child, and then after we got our child, we go bury the child, and then everything continues, we forget.
The cruel and inhumane events surrounding this case demand immediate and decisive action.
Outside the office of the Nakuru Governor Susan Keka is where the protesters camped, where they presented their complaints to the Nakuru County Secretary Samuel Maura.
Why are we giving you this? You don't even have a stamp. So what do you have that you can acknowledge that you are receiving this letter?
Angalia wazazi kama hawa, mental trauma,
yes.
Jamii nzima, magari imesimamishwa pale 5 watu wakilia. Kwa nini tumekosa utu kiasi hiki?
Later, the protesters proceeded to the Nakuru Level 5 hospital, where it is alleged that Mercy was admitted 4 days before her death and preserved at the facility's mortuary before the body went missing. Nakuru County Secretary Samuel Maura noted that investigations into the matter are ongoing, revealing that a number of morgue attendants who were on duty when the incident occurred were on suspension.
This is a very serious police issue. It's a criminal activity. It's a crime that has been committed. And therefore, me Kenya nitauliza community yote jamii, we are cooperating fully with the police. Tutasoma content ya hii petition and we'll also continue collaborating with the police until we get to the bottom of this matter.
Mercy Cheptumo died on Monday, February 3rd, and the body taken to Nakuru Level 5 Hospital mortuary. But when the parents, both with hearing impairment, visited the facility to pick up the body for burial, they were told it was missing.
We have a communication barrier. We have the right.
Chichi Josephine, TV47, Nakuru.
Thank you, Chichi. Human rights defenders have issued a 7-day ultimatum to security agencies demanding the immediate arrest of the suspected serial rapist in Magadi, Kajiado County. This comes following the rise in rape cases in the area. Anastasia Mukabe with more details.
Human rights defenders have issued a 7-day ultimatum to security agencies demanding the immediate arrest of the suspected serial rapist. The continued delay in apprehending the suspect has fueled public concern and raised questions about the effectiveness of the investigations. This, a section of leaders held a community meeting at Magadi, Kajiado County to sensitize the residents on the need to report the rape cases that happen in order to put to book the perpetrators. Led by the Principal Secretary for Gender, Anne Wangombe, called on the multi-agency team in the area to collaborate and curb the situation.
Talking about rape cases, this is unacceptable. So I am calling upon you, of course, through your boss. Yes, I'm calling upon you to ensure that you get to know what is happening on the ground and that these people are brought to book. Let's all work together. And please, Nyubakumi, Gao, let us encourage the people of Kajiado to come out and report these cases. Sometimes they fail to report because they fear, they don't quite understand the structures, and sometimes they think that some of these practices are normal.
Kajiado Women Representative Leah Sankare urged CS for Internal Security to deploy General Service Unit GSU officers stationed in Magadi to assist in a thorough search of the area, focusing on the potential hideouts in the bushes of the serial rapist, further urging the residents to work with the police.
Kwa wiki zijazo tutakuja kufanya uhamasisho ili watu wetu waweze kukuja kufanya reporting kesi kama hizo zikitokea. Maana mimi najua ni nyingi sana. Yes, kwa sababu that was a presidential directive. Hapa Magadi leo tuanze kuona kwamba tumetoa agenda desk yetu pale kwa police station, tumelete kwa hospitali.
Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Thank you, Anastasia. Former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu has appealed a 12-year jail term and 53.5 million Kenya shillings fine. His lawyers have raised 57 grounds of appeal arguing against his detention at Nairobi Remand Center. The Anti-Corruption Court last week found Waititu guilty of conflict of interest and dealing with suspect property charges after he received millions from Kiambu. And as Mike Kagwongo reports, Waititu has urged the court to allow the bond security he had deposited during trial to be applied as a continuing bond to secure his release. Take a look.
After being sent to the hospital, former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu has appealed the decision to condemn him to 12 years in prison in connection with the 588 million shillings corruption case. Waititu has accused trial magistrate Thomas Nzioki of failing to thoroughly examine the prosecution's case in his document submitted to the Milimani Anti-Corruption High Court. In his affidavit, the former governor said the trial judge erred in law and fact by failing to consider key exceptional and unusual circumstances crucial to the determination of the case. Waititu says the court proceeded with the trial before it having stripped him of the presumption of innocence and thereby shifting the legal burden of proof from the prosecution to himself. Waititu highlighted how he is suffering from a combination of violent high blood pressure and diabetes, which are medical conditions that require him to take special care and constant medical attention, as they are conditions that can only be managed but not cured. He says he is ready to adhere to any bail or bond terms and any other conditions that may be imposed by Honorable Court. In the application, lawyer Dunstan Omari said Waititu is the sole breadwinner and therefore being in custody pending the hearing and determination of the appeal will leave his family destitute and desperate, and their livelihood will be greatly compromised if he remains in prison during the pendency of the appeal. Omari said Waititu is apprehensive that unless the High Court grants the order sought, the court shall proceed to execute his sentence, which will cause him great prejudice.
He can be stabilized so that there is nothing called preferential treatment for Babayao. He is a legislator, he's a politician, he's a citizen, former governor. Let him go and sleep in prison like anybody. As we are talking like this, Babayao is undergoing medical treatment at industrial area prison.
Waititu has urged the court to allow the bond security he had deposited during trial to be applied as a continuing bond to secure his release. Magistrate Thomas Nzioki Thursday last week found Waititu guilty of conflict of interest and dealing with suspect property charges after he received millions from Kiambu County through the 588 million shillings roads tender. He had to choose between serving 12 years in prison or paying a fine of 53.5 million shillings. Mike Kagwongo, TV47, Nairobi.
Let's take you to the August House, where the National Assembly has dismissed an attempt by the Grassroots Oversight Initiative to initiate a motion against National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, citing procedural limitations and parliamentary rules. The clerk of the National Assembly, Samuel Njoroge, informed the petitioners that parliamentary rules do not allow the House to discuss the Speaker's conduct unless a substantive motion is introduced by a sitting member of Parliament. The clerk further advised that only an MP who is aggrieved by the Speaker's conduct has the legal standing to move such a motion, making the grassroots initiative's move unacceptable, underscoring the procedural barriers that shield the Speaker from direct censure by the public. He insisted that only an MP can initiate such a debate within the House, the Grassroots Oversight Initiative, which had sought to challenge the Speaker's conduct. To health matters, where the government plans to firm up the new health scheme that has been subject to constant criticism over its functionality, following its step in adding 7.8 billion shillings to fund some services under the Taifa Care health systems in the supplementary budget set to be tabled in Parliament. These resolutions were reached at a health summit chaired by Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki today. Sheila Chelangat reports.
19.8 million Kenyans have been registered so far in the new healthcare system. However, for many, the disruption of services due to system downtime has been a thorn in the flesh for many, hence the calls for the need to upgrade the system to benefit all Kenyans.
They will be reviewing the benefits package every 2 years. That is to identify the concerns and critical components that need to be addressed urgently and for them to be implemented as we had seen earlier, such as the critical illness.
Today, at the first health summit chaired by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, he emphasized the need for this system upgrade.
Some of the issues that are not on the table now, but in a preemptive strategy, we need to deal with them so that they don't catch up with us in the middle of the program.
County heads noted that lack of capitation has affected the efficiency of the new system, citing arrears of up to 7.5 billion from the defunct National Health Insurance Fund and recent withdrawal from donors.
And we are at risk of having 58,495 new infections by 2030 if donor funding is reduced. For TB, we are likely to have 23,500 TB annual mortalities, among them being 20,000 people living with HIV.
In this bid to upgrade the health system, now chronic and emergency fund and primary health care services will receive 3 billion each and maternity-related health services 1.8 billion in this year's supplementary budget, while the means testing tool will be reviewed by 28th February to make it more objective.
Once that process is complete, we expect a more energetic rollout again, because the target of the UHC program is to make sure that every citizen of Kenya has a medical insurance cover.
Another mass registration drive exercise for the health system is slated for March this year. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Thank you, Sheila. The Kenya Union of Clinical Officers has announced the resumption of their nationwide strike effective midnight, citing failure by the government to implement the return-to-work formula signed in September last year. This strike comes after the lapse of the 21-day suspension strike notice. KUKO has faulted the Social Health Authority SHA for failing to implement resolutions that would contract and empanel facilities and clinical officers. Sheila Chelangat has more details.
Health services across the country are set for another disruption following the anticipated resumption of strike by clinical officers.
Today, midnight, we are going to withdraw our services. And this time round, we are not going back until every note of that agreement is implemented.
The strike resumes after the 21-day suspension of strike notice lapsed. Amongst the issues that have put these parties at loggerhead is the collective bargaining agreement signed 7 years ago, pre-authorization rights for their members and empanelment to the Social Health Authority.
Where we have been negotiating a CBA for more than 7 years without an end to it. Whenever we reach conclusion, the government always exclude themselves from the table.
Mara siji nini imefanya nini. As we are even saying that we are going to look for Raila Odinga. Now he's back in Kenya. We are going to look for Baba so that he gives us Mbadi. So that thing that wanasema timekwama huko kwa ofisi ya Mbadi at Treasury ya CBA itengenezwe turudi tusavu wananchi.
The clinical officers have also taken issue with a delay in confirmation of universal health coverage staff into permanent and pensionable terms, promotion of clinical officers, and comprehensive medical cover for all clinical officers.
We agreed that these issues were to be resolved because it was observed that indeed the existing laws and policy favors clinical officer to practice in accordance to their scope of practice and their qualification. That was to be done immediately. It has not happened, and we have been following this matter.
Even as they vow to strike until their demands are met.
21 days are over, and we are pulling out, and we are not coming back until full implementation of all that.
GOtv says it remains open for any meaningful conversations on their issues. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Now, in a bid to prevent the pandemic fund from being misused, the executive head of the pandemic fund at the World Bank has confirmed the recent $129 million allocated for mpox will hardly be mismanaged. This as they have put measures to ensure their transparency and accountability in the allocated fund for mpox in the 10 African countries, including Kenya. Anastasia Mukabi with more details.
The pandemic fund allocated $129 million for mpox in 10 African countries, including Kenya, to contain the outbreak. This in order to cap the COVID-19 billionaires saga, where a section of leaders misused billions of funds allocated to control the pandemic for their selfish gains. The pandemic fund team has come up with a way to safeguard the funds and ensure there is accountability and transparency.
Pandemic Fund is hosted by the World Bank. Its allocation model relies on the safeguards and standards that its implementing entities have. Key implementing entities include the World Bank and other multilateral development banks, United Nations agencies, and global health initiatives. They were in fact selected on the basis of their fiduciary and environmental and social and gender safeguards. So we adhere to very strong standards in terms of safeguards and in terms of transparency.
Distributing over 50% of its resources to Africa, the Pandemic Fund aims to close the preparedness of pandemic gap in Africa and assist in strengthening the health systems.
The Pandemic Fund allocates a very large amount of its resources to Sub-Saharan Africa. It's because these countries in Sub-Saharan Africa have huge capacity gaps in terms of strengthening their prevention, preparedness and response efforts. And it's also because demand has been really high from Sub-Saharan Africa, which of course reflects the fact that these countries recognize the gaps that they have, and they recognize the importance of investing in pandemic prevention, preparedness and response.
Ebola being a major threat in East and Central Africa, the fund's support has played a great role in improving and preparedness, like in strengthening laboratories and help with workforce.
Our main focus of the Pandemic Fund really is longer-term preparedness, really getting all countries to that right level of preparedness that they can deal with a new outbreak as it emerges.
Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Indeed, time now for our first short commercial break right here on TV47. When we come back, we have more, including business and sports. And just to remind you of the conversation tonight, the AUC aftermath and what portends next. My guests are already here in studio. Please do stand by for that and much more in a short while.
is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's mind. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Let's make sense of the sense. The Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority has announced over 80 billion shillings in unclaimed assets, with pressure mounting to disburse the growing asset lump before deadlines expire. This as the authority puts institutions hoarding unclaimed financial assets on the spot, saying they should ensure the claims are settled to less than 20%.
Pressure is mounting on individuals who are yet to lay claim to financial assets from the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, as the institution reports almost 100 billion in assets that remains in their coffers unspoken for.
Look for the owner of this 82 billion to come and pick the money. Our core mandate is not to receive the money and keep it. No, we receive and should receive, but should also reunify this money with the owners. We urged Kenyans to really come ahead and claim their money.
The funds are safe and it is in central bank. So for the years that one may not come,
That's our responsibility to safeguard. And therefore, we do an average of almost 2 million or 1 million in a month in terms of claims that the public come to our offices to claim.
This as the authority affirms the integrity of the body, dismissing claims of difficulty in accessing unclaimed assets.
This money belongs to Kenyans. Kenyans who are alive of all walks of life, from the Gen Zs to the elderly people. This money belongs to all Kenyans who are alive.
When a member of public makes a claim, we go through a rigorous process to ensure that we validate and confirm that whoever has applied or rather lodged a claim is the rightful owner. That is our responsibility. So we go through a process. We ensure that if it is identification, we confirm also the ID.
UFA has also sent a warning to asset holders yet to remit claimed assets, saying the process of reimbursement has been made easier over time.
The only challenge that probably has been low reunification, which again, the awareness we are running, we believe as we go along is going to improve and we get more people coming to make their claims and get back the money to the economy.
An outreach program has now commenced in the capital, meant to provide the essential service to Nairobians. The Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority is now saying that around 86 billion Kenyan shillings is yet to be claimed. This as around 2 million claims come in every single month into the authority. They now want Kenyans to take the prerogative, visit them and get these assets as soon as possible. Hibak Said for TV47 from Uhuru Park.
Thank you, Hibak. History has been witnessed at the port of Mombasa after two cruise vessels docked at the same time. The vessels, Miss World Odyssey and MS World Odyssey, and MS Europa both have more than 1,600 passengers and crew. This will signal a major boost to the tourism industry as tourists have embarked on an archi-tourism across the country. Speaking at the port of Mombasa, stakeholders have insisted on the importance of peace and security in the country to attract more cruise vessels. However, business persons are meant to benefit as MS World Odyssey is scheduled to be in the country for 6 days. Additionally, according to KPA Managing Director Captain Ruto, they are expecting one of the largest cruise vessels in the world with 2,000 passengers.
It says a lot for the country, because it confirms that as a country we support tourism, the excursions that the tourists have taken. It is also as a country that is also supporting, providing security, and when we have peace in the country, this is what you always expect. And as I say, it is a history in this port today, because normally we always receive maybe one ship at a time, but today we are lucky enough to have received 2 ships. And it is the start of the season for cruise tourism. As KPA, we continue marketing cruise tourism for our port and for the country.
And exciting also to have some of them going to Vipingo to play golf. So we look forward to more endorsements about having more ship dock here. We know that this is money that remains with the community in terms of their spend when they come in.
We have more or less everyone heading for some of your national parks to look at the wildlife, etc. And I don't think there are that many left here in Mombasa town, as a matter of fact. But it's a beautiful town. It's always nice to be back. So thank you for the nice welcome.
Sports news brought to you by Maybets.
Join Maybets leo upate free bet papo hapo. Fanya hivi, chagua home team to win, yani number 1 au draw X au away team 2 kwa game ya siku ya free bet. Weka namba yako ya simu, weka password ya account yako, chagua submit free bet. Utapata free bet kwa account yako ya Maybets. Usisahau kuverify account yako. Kama hutakuwa verified, utapoteza free bet yako after 2 days. Betting is strictly for 18 years and over. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. BCLB number 0000578.
Maybet na minia na najishindia. Pesa inavutia,
Let's get sporty. With just over a month to go to the much-awaited WRC Safari Rally, which kicks off on March 20th, Toyota by Sifao has reaffirmed its commitment to Kenyan motorsport by pumping 33 million Kenya shillings into the annual showdown event. This sponsorship will include the provision of one Toyota GR Hilux pickup that will be used as a 00 route opener and will also additionally provide a Hilux mild hybrid pickup that will be used as the zero car on selected stages. Toyota will support the professional driver training for 10 of the Safari Rally Safety Caravan drivers to enhance their road safety and defensive driving capabilities during the rally, which will be held in Naivasha next month.
With the shakedown in Camp Moran, we have a new section for the shakedown. That is on Wednesday the 19th. On the 20th, we flag off the rally. Slight change will just slightly be outside KICC on City Hall Way. We are working with the County of Nairobi for that, and also KICC. And then Thursday, we then head to Kasarani after flag off. After Kasarani, we have a short stage in Morendat in Naivasha. It's an 8-kilometer stage where we actually have a public village at Morendat, which will run from Thursday to Sunday.
This year's Safari Rally is going to be even more spectacular because I think the CEO has already shared with you the routes and the milestones that we expect, in each of those segments. And therefore, I want to urge Kenyans to prepare for a very spectacular event which will run from the 20th to the 23rd of March.
As a supporter and partner to Kenya's motorsport industry, CFA Mobility fully embraces the spirit of competition, teamwork, and performance excellence, and that's what is really embodied by our Toyota Gazoo team.
The professional golfers of Kenya, in collaboration with the Magical Kenya Open Local Organizing Committee, have announced the 5 additional local players who will compete in the upcoming Magical Kenya Open set to be held at Muthaiga Golf Club from February 20th to the 23rd. This comes after an 18-holes qualifying event was held at Windsor Golf and Country Club today as 30 Kenyan professional golfers battled it out for a place in this historic tournament. Mutahi Kibugu emerged as the top qualifier, finishing the round with an impressive score of -2. He was closely followed by Vice Chairman of PGK Alfred Nandwa and Eric Oak, who both tied for second place with scores of -1. The other 2 qualifiers were Daniel Nduva and Simon Njogu, who ensured they sealed their place in the showpiece.
So it is an opportunity to push our local players to perform at a new level. And that challenge means that during the course of the year, between one game and the next, they have to apply themselves to improving their skills so they can perform better in the event the following year. So the government has been very instrumental in ensuring that we have a top-level tournament like this in the country. What does the government get back for it? The event reaches almost 580 million households in the world. So you multiply that by an average of 3 people in each household, that is probably about 1.6 billion eyes, pairs of eyes that are watching Kenya. So if you turn that into the advertising value that you would have to pay in order to get that, the advertising value for that is almost $30 million net advertising value. And the investment by the government of Kenya is about $2 million. So they're getting a return of 15 times in terms of promoting Kenya.
Mombasa-based Premier League club Bandari FC revealed their new signings today after splashing a whopping 2 million Kenya shillings on the highly rated players. The players include renowned Kenyan national team striker John Mark Makwata, who was purchased from Tanzanian side, Coastal Union alongside defender Dennis Nganga, midfielder Clifford Ouma, and sharpshooter Ali Alafu from Congo United. Meanwhile, their sister club Bandari Queens also unveiled new signings: Euphrasia Shilwatso, Faida Kwekwe, and goalkeeper Valentine Kwaka. The 2 teams believe the revamp will help them push for glory as they remain in the hunt of a national title.
Achilia aliside na ndio tukaleta wachezaji wengine. Na wengine pia mikataba iko karibu kuisha, so tuko bado katika mazungumzo. Mnavyojua ili dirisha la usajili bado liko wazi mpaka tarehe 28 mwezi huu. So tunaendelea na tuna imani vile timu ambavyo tumeiweka sasa hizi tutaweza kufanya katika malengo yaliyobakia.
Pia kujoin Bandari na pia tumefurahia reception, tumekuwa received with a lot of respect. Kwa team tutachangia, hawako position mbaya, but for this season tutachangia sana na experience kwanza. Tumewajoin kwa training, tumeona wengi wao pia ni wadogo, kuna vitu kadhaa hawajazoea.
I believe with my experience naweza add something valuable kwa team, na the end of the season we all try to achieve something great.
Wamenijalia nimetimiza malengo yangu, ni kitu chenye kwa nakutafuta sana kucheza Premier, na nashukuru nimefaulu.
Sports News brought to you by Maybets.
Join Maybets leo upate free bet papo hapo. Fanya hivi, chagua home team to win, yani number 1 au draw X au away team 2 kwa game ya siku ya free bet. Weka namba yako ya simu, weka password ya account yako, chagua submit free bet. Utapata free bet kwa account yako ya Maybets. Usisahau kuverify account yako. Kama hutakuwa verified, utapoteza free bet yako after 2 days. Betting is strictly for 18 years and over. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. BCLB number 0000578.
Maybet na minia na najishindia. Pesa inavutia, pesa inavutia.
It is exactly 44 minutes past the hour. Thank you for staying the daily report. As I did tell you tonight, we focus on the AUC aftermath. In studio to have this discussion are none other than Maina Miruri on my immediate left. He is the former MCK chairman as well as an expert on matters IR. Thank you so much for joining us and good evening. Indeed. In the middle is Gordon Othiambo, an IR expert as well. Welcome, Gordon. Last but not least, also Stephen Ndegwa, IR expert, USIU, and director of South to South Dialogues. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. And let me begin with you, Maina. From what you saw at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, did you expect that, or had you had high hopes of the win of Raila Odinga?
With a background in diplomacy,
yes,
I expected that. More than half. My expectation was more than half that we were likely to flop. It was a job well done, badly presented to such an audience. It's a diplomatic, I would say, we worked ourselves into a diplomatic conundrum that we could not come out of. That was my take.
That was it, yeah. And what do you think perhaps was the biggest mishap or the biggest flop that could have or could have caused all this?
It was a combination of many rather than one. Mm-hmm. The build-up came with many mistakes. We seemed to put in more work than the target needed. We overworked ourselves. Yeah, we'll explain later.
Yes.
We overworked ourselves to an extent where we did more than was needed in Addis. We didn't have to do all that we did to win this seat. And there were many mistakes, as we will point out later. Mm-hmm. And one of the what seemed like the last straw on the camel's back that came tumbling down with us was the way we even bombed Addis with our presence. Mm-hmm. Those things are not done in diplomatic circles. Mm-hmm. You don't do them at the UN, you don't do them at AU. Uh-huh. Diplomacy is a quiet game. Many winners don't have to say anything, and they win.
They win.
We said too much. We lost.
Absolutely, and we'll be getting to see what mishaps, how else we flopped, as Nairobi flopped in this. Gordon, when you look at the razzmatazz that followed this whole AUC campaign, was that very important or necessary, or how was it supposed to be contained?
First, patriotism requires that we be hopeful to the last end.
Yes.
Till the last whistle. Patriotism requires us that we keep hoping. But that notwithstanding, many people will have many suggestions around this. But you see, when someone is acting out of their own convolution, you might not dictate how you want someone to use their own money to do some other things. However, I think there is a better way that other things can be done. But there's absolutely no wrong in people showing up in solidarity with an individual in respect to the country that is contesting for a particular seat. As to whether we expected this, AUC has always had its fair share of surprises right from the beginning, back now like three seats ago, where we had Lamini Zuma actually hosting a sitting chair, that is Jinping. Then we had Musa Faki, who was little talked about during Amina and Bathili's run, and all expected that it was either Bathili of Senegal or Amina of Kenya. We also got a surprise. So I think, to me, it is all about lessons. It's not about the loss. It's about the lessons we learn and how we act upon those lessons moving into the future.
Yeah, and speaking up from lessons, because it's an interesting question, Stephen, how many times can we have lessons? This was the second shot. How many more times can we have lessons at such stints?
Thanks, George, for inviting me. And actually, that is the pertinent question. That is what I was actually going to respond to him.
Yeah.
We move from blunder to blunder. We have lost a lot of opportunities in international, job market at that level, at the high level. Amina Mohammed, we know what made us lose, you see. And if you look at the same script was used for the Raila AUC chairmanship, which took us back, to the same situation of losing. And like my colleague Maina Mwirori said, diplomacy is a quiet game. Look at how Mohammed Yusuf played his game. We'd never had him. He didn't have any razzmatazz. When he appeared in Addis, it was just him. Okay, the photo that appeared there was just him, his wife, and the president. And of course, there was a few technocrats, okay, who were there. But Kenyans thought that winning is, being haughty, being rowdy, and, So I think we are not learning, and we shall continue losing the game, because other countries are watching us, and they're wondering, what kind of stakes are you placing in these things? Are you out to help Africa, or are you out to help the organizations that you are yearning to lead, or you're just there for your own selfish interests? Yes.
Maina, was Raila Odinga the best candidate that Kenya had to offer? He has been regarded as Africa's finest, East Africa's finest. Was he the best candidate? Let's even go there from the get-go.
First, I'll say it's not even more of who we sent there.
Okay.
It was more Kenya. We could have taken any candidate there and won it. Forget about what people have been saying, that this was a campaign that had two impacts. One at home here. There is a way Kenyans viewed it. And it was fought locally in a manner that did not count in Addis. In Addis, he carries a lot of weight. He's internationally known.
Yeah.
He's been the infrastructure
commissioner.
Yeah, of AU. He's a foreign affairs healed guy in many ways. He's experienced. He's been a presidential contender in Kenya. You cannot put down his clout. He's got what it takes. And some of the things they said about him need not have counted. Age at some of these levels don't count. Even if you look at some of the United Nations bosses we've had, old guys, and they perform their job. If you look at what they were saying during the interview, that he can only speak English. Raila is a good German speaker. They are only mentioning French. It's because Germany has no foothold in Africa. He's good in many ways. Mostly, to me, it's the way the campaign was handled and not of his own making. Some of the mistakes that were made, you cannot blame him for. You blame the country and the campaign team.
Talking of those mistakes, Gordon, are there things that perhaps you think the Honorable Raila Odinga would have said, no, let's not go this way, we can go this way?
Well, we can only compare Raila's campaign to another campaign that we've seen, at least conducted by Kenya. So when we say this might have not been conducted well, in comparison to what? Maybe in comparison to Amina's campaign. If you ask me, this campaign one had technocrats. It had those who have the diplomatic acumen. It had those who had the administrative know-how. So it wasn't something really new to them. One thing that to me is very fundamental is that the campaigns were done and done well. They were done well. The only mess-up that at a professional level that I can see is in the last minutes of this campaign. And it is not from the Kenyan side. The communique that came from the SADC, it was a communique that had weight and well intended for these particular campaigns. We saw what it was, and it reflected exactly like that in the voting. Even when Randre Marato had now left, we could see how the figures were beginning to change. And that is coupled up with so many things. One of them being the DRC crisis. We know up to now the position that Kenya has taken, or the position that is perceived to have been taken by Kenya with the DRC and the SADC region, which we will go into later. But I think that Kenya lost this basically because of the big man syndrome. Kenya is playing a perfect game, and this perfect game is not going down well with many of our friends in the sub-Saharan region. And that has also been a matter in the global world. You ask yourself, when did even America fail UN Secretary General position? Because they already know, the world already know, there is somewhere you play. There's a league in which you play. So when you are given more powers, they become very skeptical of you. And that is the thing that is eating Kenya. Maybe it is time Kenya retreats and do a roadmap on what really our foreign policy intends to do for us as a country within the region and in the continental level.
Bona Stephen,
yes.
Is a handshake a courtesy call, a promise to a vote?
Sorry, come again?
Is a courtesy call or a handshake or a visit to a president's office?
Okay.
Does it translate to a promise to a vote?
No. You seem to be reading my thoughts tonight, because I was actually, I had noted here that you remember when Moi was kind of pulling away from Saitoti, you know, during the KANU days. And he said, urafiki ni tofauti, you know. So simply because we are getting all these photo ops, and that is where we confuse diplomacy. Diplomacy is not about photo ops and shuttling from one place to the other. It is about getting the commonalities in which you can, okay? So you can even go and get a photo op with someone you think is very close. Like people are saying, oh, Raila is a friend of Tshisekedi's father, but the current president of the DRC. But this is a different ballgame, you see. It's not about those personal relationships, because here there are big stakes. And so when people like SADC came up, and I knew that Raila's goose had been cooked when SADC came and gave that statement. I mean, it was just supposed to tell you guys that, this is over. And we seemed to take it lightly because we tended to play our local politics. We transplanted our local politics into the global or the intercontinental scene. We didn't look at the sensibilities that affect the regions and countries. Okay, we have those sensibilities, but for one reason, the political class did not see us losing, but everyone else. You go to social media, even people who are honest. The problem with this country is there's no honesty. People will tell lies because they want to gain from something, but no one will tell the king that you're naked because you don't want to look back but people would have told, if they listened to the experts, diplomatic experts and so forth, they should have known that this campaign is overdone, okay? And we should have been more strategic and quiet in the way we have a new foreign policy document. I don't know how much that was applied in this campaign, or it's just a document for show, Yes.
Yeah, Maina, before you proceed for a break, there is this whole conversation about how that SADC letter was received by Nairobi, and we had what the PS for Foreign Affairs, Korir Singh, said. To them, it does not signify a lot, whereas they were taking nothing to chance. Do you think there was a lot of, downplaying a lot, as Stephen says?
What seemed to hurt us more, indeed, I would think, was Singh's statement to targeting SADC and Madagascar. Madagascar is like that thing goats have here. It's neither on the skin nor on the meat, because Madagascar acts like it's in the south, but when it favors it, it looks again like it's in the east. And Singh was complaining that we need an AU change of rules where these things need to be defined very well. Which side of Africa do you play in? Which in future could force us to have, the way UN Secretary General is rotated continentally, yes. It's time now, maybe in future we think of, this time it's Southern Africa, this time it's East, this time it's North. So that when it's East, we know then it's Raila. Mm-hmm. But now he was complaining that this one is not clear. And that's why we keep losing to Francophone. Mm. They are more than us.
They're more than us.
Yes. Absolutely. So it's the complaint by Singh actually had weight, but was ignored. Uh-huh. Yeah. Absolutely. And it needs to be given weight in future. Uh-huh. Otherwise, we'll never have it will be taking a long time before we have an Anglophone. Mm-hmm. Only the French-speaking and Maghreb, North Africans, and they are very powerful. Apart from Egypt speaks English, but it votes with the Maghreb. We had so many ways to lose. Mm-hmm. And indeed, Raila tried to hit 20 and 22. Mm. It was a surprise he hit those votes at the first rounds.
In the first rounds. I know, Gordon, you are itching to respond. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. We've just lifted the lead and the top player, if you wish, of this conversation on AUC and the aftermath, and of course the ramifications that it will have in Kenyan politics. That conversation continues shortly with my guests who are still here in studio. Please keep your feedback coming. We'll be back shortly.
Is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Welcome back. You're watching The Daily Report with me, George Maringa. Tonight, we still look at matters AUC. My guest still in studio, Maina Miruri, a diplomacy and IR expert and former MCK chair, as well as Gordon Othiambo, an IR expert, and Stephen Degwa, executive director, South-to-South Dialogues, and also an IR expert. On socials, on YouTube, Patrick Lawrence is saying, yes, Madagascar was the Njagada, the kingmaker. Raila has never been strategic in his campaigns. He assumes a lot. Let's go back to Kenya's reaction, especially on the SADC letter, because that came really barely, if you could call it a few hours, 48 to 72 hours before the vote. Of what impact did it have? Should Kenya have remained silent? You said diplomacy is silent. Should Kenya have remained silent, or what would have been our reaction?
You know, in other words, they say diplomacy is saying so much good things, or so many good lies, even when you know very well all you are saying are lies, but you say them, you package that lie in a very nice way. I think we would have gotten better wordings around that letter. We would have reworked our wordings around the letter so that someone, in diplomacy, you do everything not to injure someone's ego. You soothe their ego. But I think that is where we we didn't get it so quite correctly. We did not soothe other people's ego. We ought to have done that. So I think that was an overlook, and I keep saying those are some of the things we need to take into consideration moving forward. But even having said that, I may say strongly that everything we do diplomatically seems to be a knee-jerk reaction in Kenya, out of observation. Remember, when Amina was going to run, it was like an afterthought. So we are fielding in Amina. That was just 2017. We knew who Amina had been and what she had done, blah, blah. Then last minute we think Amina is the best candidate. We field in Amina. After she lost that seat, what did we do? There was a seat at UNHCR. There was a seat at WTO. Then what did we do? We are going for WTO. Last minute again. Even
still with Amina.
Still with Amina.
Yeah.
Did we think through it? And we again lost. This time round, we were almost fielding a candidate for Commonwealth. And I think the candidate is a real diplomat. The candidate, being a real diplomat, looked at the situation and withdrew.
Dr. Monica.
Dr. Monica Juma, being the real diplomat she is, she mirrored the situation, screened so well, and pulled out of it. Asked Kenya to pull. So Kenya did that. Raila Odinga's candidature. Did we ever know this seat will ever fall vacant? Yes, we knew. What did we do about it 2-3 years ago? Did we prepare Raila's candidacy 2-3 years ago to go for this seat? We did not. When did it come? Raila says he was not asked by anyone to vie. He thought about it by himself. Then the state had to come and help. So if we want some of these seats, we must begin to organize ourselves early enough. We already know what seats will fall vacant when. Did you know that even as we speak, there are 2 seats within AU that have not been filled? Positions of commission. Nobody even forwarded candidates for those seats. So we must be very strategic. We must be very forward-looking in terms of how are we going to deal diplomatically within the continent and globally on some of these positions that we want. If good enough, let us begin to work within the system, organically grow individuals within the system, so that when we are going for this position, they are not seen as outsiders, but they are seen as insiders within those organizations.
Stephen, SADC, when SADC said what it said and instructed its member states, Kenya said, and PS King Korir Singh said, it is barely, an invitation to consider, and be out of courtesy.
Yes.
What do you think should have been the reaction? Because they say, they allude, I don't know, they think the same, that the last-minute reaction by Kenya is what costed us.
Well, I think I tend to think he did not overdo it. His response was actually tempered, I think what we did wrong ourselves is to take it for granted. Because you could see that even as the PS was saying, I think he used quite some diplomatic language. He didn't rub people the wrong way because he had 2 options, either to keep quiet or to respond to some extent the way he did. And it means that if then he kept quiet, it would have been, you have agreed to whatever it is. But I think he tried his best because he felt the heat. That thing was too hot. I think that's why now he had to respond the way he did. So that, for me, was not the issue. Even if he responded or not responded, the die was cast, And unfortunately, we do not like to, we are as they say, we are allergic to the truth in this country. So you'll tell people such things, you'll become a pariah, okay? Because I remember during as the elections were ongoing, one of my colleagues who works for an international media house, he was in Addis. So he just sent and said, grounded in Mbaya in Addis. He was, okay, he was in the middle of it when the elections were starting, but he said grounded in Mbaya, Addis. So personally, I just forwarded that message to people, just to see how people react. So I tried to call him, but we were not able because of the internet issue. And then later on, he wrote something more, yeah? And he said that there's a backlash against the Kenyans' behavior. The political class that went there, let's be honest, they did not give a good show about this country. And so the other countries were like, okay, you guys, you think you're that smart. You see? So it was a David versus Goliath kind of battle, because we were here in Kenya, we were gung-ho, we were showing, you can fight and, we have it together. Then the guy said, okay, let's see how it goes, you see? So that's how we lost. And people who actually would have maybe moved to our side, we rubbed them the wrong way with our attitude,
Yeah.
So the SADC issue, definitely, that one we had no way of, I think it was a coded message. They knew. As you can see, they said Madagascar, they knew what they would do. They knew the Madagascar gentleman would not go anywhere. As Maina says, it was the Jagada thing, mother tongue. Yeah. But so they just said, okay, we just wait. You see, like the way you have these runners in the field.
Yes.
They're going to be number 5 until when the last whistle is blown. That guy now comes and sweeps, everyone ahead of him. So that is the kind of game that was played against us. But I think going forward, another good suggestion is that we need to have the AU consider regional representation. Because Francophone, surely, they will continue playing this game to their advantage. But even us still, having said that, we can be beaten by Tanzanians or Ugandans. We are not the only Anglophones. Because already there are Anglophone organizations that we have not been able to get into as in leadership positions. So we can't assume because it is Anglophone we are going to take it, So we just need to put our act together diplomatically.
Yeah, and we'll be coming to that, the organization of Africa into, rather the regional divide in Africa, and we'll be also listening to what the Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi, Kenya's top diplomat, had to say following that vote. But Mena, let me pick your mind on the razzmatazz that, Stephen has alluded to. And it was sort of a punishment to Taonyesha, And you've spoken about the prefect syndrome, what did you call it? What's the term you used? You said,
Actually, I said it's a prefect big man syndrome.
Yes, big man syndrome. When you look at that and how it hurts Kenya's chances, perhaps even in the future, and perhaps even the imagery that retains, to some of these leaders, because you don't know what else could fall vacant very soon. And some of these leaders, what, we've done even on social media and the lack of patriotism. What would you call the containing and the restraint that Kenyan leaders should exercise in such scenarios?
I'll say first that we, even as projecting our image goes, we should start nearer home than far. When you go to the shamba, it's been mango season. When I go to Muranga and you go to the shamba with a kiondo, sometimes you don't have to go up the tree. You start with the low-hanging. First, we started by missing several low-hanging, and those are costly votes. Number one, it's suspected Ethiopia didn't give us. Ethiopia is Djibouti's bosom friend. Indeed, they use the Djibouti port. Somalia is suspected they did not give us. We have the longest border with any other country. We have the longest border is with Somalia, the maritime and the land. They didn't give us. Djibouti is basically Somalia. Same language, clans crossover. Djibouti speak Somali.
Yes.
Those are two low-hanging fruits you've already missed. Sudan is injured. It's bad from voting. Sudan, not the South.
Not the South.
South, I think, is a good low-hanging that can never ditch us. Then, while we are losing this, DRC, without the war, should have been our vote. It is sure they didn't give us. Should have been our vote. Other votes lost out of our mistakes are, they may not have known then that an election is coming. The Palestinian-Israeli question. Our president, the whole of Africa, was the only one who said directly, we support Israel. Many other countries support Israel, even America, but America never verbalizes it. They do it with action. In diplomacy, that's what you are saying. In diplomacy, sometimes just keep quiet. Israel knows you support them, but just keep quiet. SADC, South Africa, who is the leader of SADC, by clout has taken Israel to court. It has many grudges with us. Even before coming to Ethiopia, South Africa has many grudges with us. Maghreb, if you don't support the Palestinian issue from Egypt to Tunisia through Morocco, they are not with you. Even though Morocco and Algeria are not friends. Then you also lose someone like Algeria very early in this regime. The first person we tried to edge out was Sahrawi. You lose Algeria with that. That one is so sensitive, UN had to remind you don't joke with Sahrawi. Small little blunders that later add up, and you keep losing low-hanging fruits. Ethiopia should be using our port through upset. Lamb, we've never finished yet. They can't joke with Djibouti, another low-hanging fruit. As Stephen was saying, and Gordon, you must start preparing early. Know there is an election, start being good early. Be good to Ethiopia. Even this South Sudan here, we help them a lot. We intervene to bring peace to them. But by the way Juba behaves to Kenyans, can tell you, you guys behave like prefects. They could even vote against you and keep quiet. You never know. There is a way to behave when you want to win diplomatic hearts. We don't seem to have done that a lot. Yeah. Look at DRC. We call them here for a meeting. They snub. SADC calls 2 days later. They attend. You see, it's sheer disrespect. They can't come here. Why? Because they know you are siding with Rwanda.
Absolutely.
So we have to be careful and intentional.
Let's listen to Kenya's top diplomat Musalia Mudavadi, the Foreign Cabinet Secretary, what he had to say, that Kenya is not bitter after that vote.
We are not bitter. We are a Kenyan nation, a member of the AU, participating in the process. And Honorable Raila put up a very good fight in this contest. He didn't win, but he has been very democratic and come forward himself to say, let us move on. This chapter is now closed. And we must now look beyond this. I think we should be looking at the gesture of President William Ruto to speak on the floor and recognize the process, congratulate the victor, and concede defeat in a positive manner. That is the principle of democracy that we are trying to institute in Africa.
Is Kenya bitter? Musalia Mudavadi says Kenya is not bitter, but you've seen the reaction of it. In fact, we even have a screenshot of Peter Kaluma's reaction. Let's have that on the screen, Bwana Director, as well as I read it through. Honorable George Peter Kaluma said, I will petition the withdrawal of East African community from the African Union. And then he also said, thank you, President William Ruto, you have done your best. Thank you, Baba Raila Odinga. You ran the best campaign and give it your all. The silver lining is clear. We know our enemies. Yet he says there needs to be a separation of a government statement and Kenyans expressing themselves. Where is this balance? And is Kenya bitter?
I think we need to look at it differently.
Okay.
If we realize that the question of language is becoming a problem, then we ought to have begun working on our language. What language in what sense? A unifying factor which many people now allude to is the French language and the English language that divides Africa in those lines. As East Africa community, one thing I expected maybe to come from the honorable member is that we are going to bring a petition to Parliament to ensure that we call on East African community to have one syllabus on language, one syllabus for Swahili. So beginning with that alone, you are already rallying East Africa together. So if any other country in Africa, which already many countries in Africa are teaching Swahili, including South Africa, Nigeria, and the rest, so whatever syllabus they are going to pick to teach in their universities and schools is going to be East African syllabus. So let us think of how we can get more together than divide ourselves, because what unites us is more important than what divides us, and there are so many things that brings us together. So I think the honourable member ought to have thought of how can we tie in and close East Africa to be more cohesive than not. Another thing that is very fundamental, which all of us must take note of, more so the policy makers. Can we begin to tie our policies to the needs of the country? State interest. Are we tying our... Recently, the foreign policy document was launched. If you read that foreign policy document, I don't see much that is so different from the 2014 one, because at least I took part during its validation. I put in recommendations during its validation, which hopefully I hope will be put in. Can we begin to tie our foreign policies to the state needs and the state vision? Do we have a state vision for the next 100 years, for the next 50 years? So if we begin to visualize our country for the next 50, 60, 70 years, then we will be always making policies around the visions that we have for a country. But we cannot make policies that is going to draw us further from the rest of the continent, because if we go by what the honourable member is saying, he's simply saying, let us divide ourselves from the rest. Kenya is so important. In fact, Kenya is a gateway to Africa. So you cannot think of even pulling Kenya out of all this. Kenya may not be voted in by other member states within the continent, but Kenya plays a crucial role that nobody can ignore. And I can tell you, before it is late, you will see Kenya taking a leading and very important role in bringing peace in DRC. And if peace is to be brought in DRC, Kenya will not play a second fiddle. It will be in the front line. Yeah.
Stephen, when you look at the whole, rallying of East Africa and the whole, do you think that even the, comme ça situation with the support from even East Africa itself, because we've seen what DRC has to say, and with the reaction we saw, that virtual snubbing of DRC, and then the appearance at the other summit, at the second meeting. The lack of that synergy within East Africa itself is also hurting Kenya's chances in other issues, because initially, even rather a while back, Kenya used to be considered, the view of Nairobi would be considered in so many things. It would be like, what does Nairobi think? What does Nairobi think? But nowadays, that has seemed to be the opposite.
There's a time that we were non-aligned in word and in practice. So we have moved from that situation. In the Cold War, we had said that we're not aligned, and we tried our best, although the West still came up on top because of the financial needs. We are always broke, so we need to keep getting money from the West, and so we compromise a lot of our ideologies. But I think that's one of the biggest things. Even here, we may not see it that directly, but there was a bit of, the ideological divide between those of us who are leaning to the West, those of us in China and Russia. You see, there's the BRICS thing. So there's a lot of thinking that categorizes now other differences. Not necessarily that those differences might be everything, but they might look at, because I think the people in Madagascar, the people in Djibouti must have gone with, as he says, a strategy. You go sit down, do a study. And it is interesting here because we use politicians for such jobs instead of using technocrats. This was basically a technocrat battle against politics, But as usual in Kenya, we politicize everything. And that's why we always, derail from, our vision. If you look at maybe between Mohamud and Raila, of course, Raila has the acumen, but then now when you go out there into the field and you play more politics than trying to show that you have these strategies that can bring together the continent, then you end up losing, quite a bit of credibility. Now, our sense of entitlement definitely is what, as I said again, puts other people off. Because Tanzania, Uganda, they are like, there's a point of departure. Because just like you with your friends, there's a time you're in primary school, high school, then you get to a certain point, this one goes to university, this one goes to a college, this one goes, so your paths divert. So what can make you be together? And that's why people have alumni associations, in order for you to still have those commonalities that made you be friends in high school, in campus. So if at all we are moving away from what other countries want, even in the region, then if we are not seen to be impartial, for example, the DRC game, then I mean, now people don't want to waste time playing niceties. People want to be like, are you with us or not with us? Because there's no time to waste now. Time is moving. The DRC crisis is growing by the day, okay? And so if at all people then, the intelligence, just like we have our own NIS, even those other countries have their own intelligence, and they're going to know who is doing business with these guys in DRC. And so when you don't play impartial, then they know you have a lot of stakes in what is happening. So they won't deal with you because they know that you are biased, and the kind of solutions you're going to bring there are not for the benefit of maybe the DRC people. Because right now it's very ironical that DRC it's not because DRC people love the children and the innocent people of DRC. It's because of the minerals. Let's be honest. All these things from 1960s, I don't know, and all that jazz, yeah? It is simply because there has been a fight for the rare minerals in DRC. And the minute that people can stop the greed of getting those minerals, then you will have now people decide, okay, Kagame can take his school and say, okay, fine, can we negotiate so that everyone has a take, everyone has a stake on the peaceful, whatever, resolution of the crisis. But it cannot be like, even Sudan, I think there's a lot of oil that people fight, okay? In the Middle East, the fights that are going on there, you can see now America has come out now openly and said, and these things I had read them, that they want to make that canal in Gaza, so that they stop depending on Suez Canal because of the geopolitical, the fight with China and so on. So these things, people know them, but we don't want to face the truth, and so people will cover up a crisis, bring in all manner of reasons, but the fact is that it is the money. It is about the resources, because what else are people fighting for DRC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's listen to what Mudavadi said again on the sidelines, or rather after that vote, before we proceed to a short commercial break. Let's listen to that, and then we marinate as we head into the break.
Kenya never issued an official statement as the government of Kenya to blame the Anglophone and what have you. Let us distinguish between Kenyans airing their opinion and a government position. The Kenya government has never issued a statement, has it? Because we are not in the business of dividing Africa on the basis of Anglophone and Francophone, or the other one, Russophone, which is the Portuguese direction. We are in the business of talking Africaphone.
We are in the business of talking Africaphone. Let's think about that. Swahiliphone. Let's simmer on that and then talk more after this short commercial break.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water.
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Welcome back. You're watching The Daily Report with my guests here in studio on the AUC vote aftermath. Bonamaina, having listened to Musalia Mudavadi, Kenya's top diplomat, and his reaction that Nairobi has not issued an official statement, we're looking at more African phone kind of situation and the subdivision of all these, the reaction we've seen on what Francophone has done and the Southern as well. What do you make of what he argued after the vote?
The chief cabinet minister, first he's trying to do damage control. If the outcome was good, he would never issue his statement. It's a Kenyan thing. After elections, he seems to be importing our culture there. After every election in Kenya, we protest. So that could also be a dose of how we behave after an election has gone the other way. However, it's a good thing to do and a diplomatic thing to do. To control damage is diplomacy, indeed. And again, what he seems to be speaking to is not the African forum. He seems to be speaking to Kenya, home, because this thing is coming home. And it's not coming home in a good way. He says it should not divide us. It already did even before the votes were cast. The local politics, one side was already wishing, now playing it locally. I'm not now in Addis, Kenya. One side was already thinking BAMBA should not win. The other, you heard Kaluma, what he said. The other, there is a presumption that the other side wanted him to win. we've not seen the last of it. And Mudavadi seems to know what's coming. We've not seen the last of it, and he's trying to play damage control. And I can predict, I can assure you, in the coming few weeks or months, it will keep playing up. Why we lost? Why did it lose? If Baba lost, it was already being interpreted a few minutes later when Baba said, I'm coming home, I have a lot to do. What about if he won? If he's in Addis, who would have done what he wants to come and do? What is this he wants to do? Who will he delegate it to? There is so much. Kenya, the political scene never fails to bubble. I think, watch the space.
Yeah. Gordon, speaking to that, there is even the post by Ambassador Musa Mohamed Omar that was even referenced by some outlets in Kenya, such as The Standard, where Djibouti criticized President William Ruto's comments following the loss of his preferred candidate for AUC. And the remarks came hours after Mohamed Ali Yusuf was announced the winner. And in the post, Ambassador Musa Mohamed Omar, a communication expert at Djibouti's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, said the vote showed that heads of state refused to let the African Union be influenced by Kenya's domestic politics. When you look at, the allusion that even Mena talks about, what effect does this loss by Raila Odinga have locally?
On the matter of that tweet, if the account is not verified, I refrain from commenting about it.
It is verified.
It is. You're certain, because there is a likelihood these days of the deep fake. Deep fake is a reality. So I won't comment about it because I don't know if it's a deep fake or it's a reality. But I think, again, Kenyans, we want to read too much into this. Was not about Raila Odinga. This was a Kenyan affair. And it was only proper that we conduct ourselves in a manner that portrays the patriotism in us to the rest of the world. If we fail to do that, we need to learn to do it better. Raila Odinga back home, whatnot, I think in my own observation or opinion, Kenya must begin to leverage on Raila Odinga's wisdom, courage, experience into the global arena. The moment we begin to leverage on all that Raila portends and take it to the global arena, to the continental arena, it will be much of benefit to us than looking inward. So can we begin to look outward with individuals like Raila Odinga, among many other Kenyans who are outstanding, the likes of General Opande, for example. Those are Kenyans who have done great things, and the moment we begin to give them the image they deserve as Kenyan patriots, global citizens who can serve far and beyond our country, the better for us as a country.
Okay, Stephen, looking at the impact locally in the local politics, what do you read from that return of Raila back to Nairobi?
First of all, I think we need a paradigm shift in the politics of this country. And according to the post you have read, it doesn't matter whether it's verified or not, because that, for me, that's a vibe that I did not need someone to say. And I had foreseen it before. And actually, if you look at the social media, even before the elections, there was a lot of negative comments by Kenyans against this candidature. So even when you talk about, this don't work automatically, this don't work by magic. If you do not cultivate your own citizens to be your goodwill ambassadors out there, you cannot oppress people and then you expect them to go and sing praises out there, okay? Americans and other countries that are great are patriotic because their governments take care of them. That's why we are running with green cards in the US, because you know that you go there and stay for 2 years, you make money than what you can make here in 10 years, and you are highly educated and so forth, because the government has made sure that it has empowered its people. So patriotism does not appear in a vacuum. You don't whip someone and then you say thank you. That's ridiculous, you see. So the way you treat people is the way, because even now, the other countries, when they went and looked at those social media posts, and that is why we should not ignore the youth. You know, we are trying to run away from this Gen Z issue, but it's the spirit. This is not even about the individuals themselves. The Gen Z is a spirit. And that spirit is what is going to eat this country alone if we do not make sure that we treat the youth with some level of decency and decorum. Because they are very influential. Don't forget that they are global, okay? The Gen Z is a global generation. And with social media now, things are flowing like this. So even people in other countries, the people, for example, who would have voted against us, they will look and say, this gets politics. Is this the kind of politics they are playing in Kenya? No. They are going to bring this thing to AU. So, no, you see? For me, that's what I see as a fact. So, Kaluma's statement is, of course, self-defeatist. You know, it just shows that sense of entitlement that instead of trying to say, okay, fine, in fact, we should be magnanimous in defeat, just like you should be magnanimous in victory. We should say, okay, fine, we realize that we tried our best in the campaign, but there were gaps that we need to learn so that we have some sense of mea culpa, you know. But now you lose and then you say, oh, you know, we are still the best, you know. Then you're going to be like Arsenal, those teams that are perpetual losers and, you know, you keep trying to hype up, but it's not working because at the end of the day, it's the cup that matters. And if you're not getting that cup, then it means that your coaching is not up to scratch than the people who are picking the cup. So
Arsenal fans know where.
no, I mean, let's not, at least I'm not talking about Gor Mahia. Those ones are the ones that I would fear in the AFC Leopards, you know. But those ones, you can go and get me in the UK. But basically what I'm saying is that we need to put our house in order. Let us not take these things, because that is what we do. We heap, you know, we throw it under the carpet. So the kind of rot that we are going to unearth years from now, it's going to take a lot of time to mend, because we should now stop and say, okay, excuse guys, I think there's a problem here. What can we do to change the attitude of Kenyans so that next time we are seen as one, you know, as one nation? Because as it is now, we all know that we are not one nation. Yes.
George, even before you, sorry for interjecting. Are we offering a solution? Because we have no choice B for a country. We have choice A, Kenya, choice A, Kenya, choice A, Kenya. So it is A1, A2, A3, Kenya. So are we offering a solution? Even in our analysis, in our post-mortem relook into all this, our conversation should be geared towards getting a solution, because we are not government appointees to offer counsel to the government. But I think even where they are, if they're watching, they would pick some of the things that needs to be done in order to steady our country. Because all we need is to one day be victors in any competition we are in, be victors in our diplomatic engagements. So I think these are some of the areas that we must always focus on when we are even doing our analysis. And one area that we must, and tell the government on their face that you need to relook into, is our diplomatic engagement, from the appointment, deployment, and engagement. Where we don't have footprints, can we find how we put our we have boots on the ground, so that our engagement must also be vibrant. We cannot continue maybe to have people who, some of these assignments become a tour opportunity for them, holiday opportunity for them. And sometimes people used to ask, why is the president all over the place? I normally ask, are those places having our ambassadors? Are they doing what they're supposed to do? So I think we need to, and even the policy framers, let us not have policies made at the top, then brought down. If there is anything that must come from real bottom up, must be the policy making process. The people are involved. If you look at the foreign policy document, even on the day of validation, it was clear that it had not come from the bottom, from the people. People were not engaged, because it's when it was the makers thought, let us take it to the machinani, let us explain to people what it is. It ought to have come from the people coming up, so that it is sieved to the top. And moving forward, we must begin not just to be patriots and patriotic citizens, but we must also begin to offer solution to some of the challenges that we have.
Gordon opened up a very, the last part of the conversation that I was going to bring us to, sort of remedy, and I want us, gentlemen, to think about the probable cures that, and the lessons we've picked from this whole AUC. This administration is sort of halfway in now, 3 more years to go, and what we've seen, and I'll begin with you, Maina, the whole Sahrawi situation that we saw, was it hours after the inauguration, and these all diplomatic mishaps that we've been seeing over time. What would be perhaps the wholesome reflection and recollection, or the point of koinonia, if we could call it, for this government, ground zero, to go back and say, okay, fine, we have been going this way, let's now come back here before you go back out again?
Kenya First has always held out a strong position in its foreign affairs, even when policies were said not to be there or were weak. It's been a country with a presence. And we maintain our presence in many ways. Even being economically the strongest in the region, despite Bila Pesa kwa mfuko, we are still the strongest in the region. That's a presence. And we don't seem to capitalize on our presence the way South Africa does. South Africa looks like the powerhouse it's supposed to be. Nigeria, if you've been to Lagos, I can tell you without fear of contradiction, they may have a big name, big population, but we are far better than them. Kenyans don't migrate towards Lagos. Nigerians are here, so many. If you go to Lagos, you have to look for a Kenyan. There is not this migration to that side. Yet, their presence is very heavy, and they don't joke. To an extent of even claiming, we'll give you our visa on the same terms you give our people the visa. They've done that with South Africa.
Yes.
You give us 6 days, we'll also give you 6 days to apply for a visa. Here we never do that. Some visas now you can't even want to apply. People stopped applying because you are given 6 months and you are going for a graduation next week. We are timid. The timidity is sometimes what has put us down. We don't know what we have. We don't exercise. We punch below our weight. I don't know why. For long, we seem to punch below our weight. To please this way and to please this way. We want to please the East and to please the West. The closest Kenya seemed to come to a decisive engagement with our region was when Kibaki took over. And you can see the results. He just decided. And IMF, World Bank started respecting the guy, stopped giving the sanctions, coming to him and wanting to help without any strings attached. We need to pull strings with the strength we have. And I'm talking now especially on foreign policy.
Yes.
We need to assert ourselves seriously. Egypt, when America is dealing with the Maghreb, they deal with Egypt. The whole Gaza-Israeli question has been negotiated in Egypt and Qatar. But in Africa, in Egypt, when America needed something done, they deal with Egypt. Why? The country is strong diplomatically. It's not richer than Morocco or Algeria. It's not richer than them, but it has clout and it positions itself. The same way I'm saying Nigeria is, they forgive me, Lagos is like a place in the dust, some places. But they are strong and they don't joke and they stand their ground. South Africa, the same. East here, we are so timid. We need a strong foreign policy that when Kenya speaks, it's, if a solution is needed for DRC, you'll have to come through Kenya.
Okay.
And Kenya will sort that. We'll help you sort that. Because of the clout we have, we need a strong foreign policy clout, exercised, made to be felt diplomatically, not arrogantly. And the country is full of experts. Some of the best diplomats in this continent are from this country.
Yeah, Gordon.
I don't agree that Kenya is punching below its weight. In fact, Kenya we are being accused of punching above our weight. We are not lightweights as far as diplomatic engagements in the region is concerned. We are almost the big boy in the region. And that is where our problem is, because then there is a fear of, if already they are now playing the prefect role, yes, if they are given more powers and more privileges, what would they do? That is where the fear of Kenya is coming in. How we conduct our diplomacy, how we conduct ourselves politically. Remember that it is only in Kenya where you can have a vicious political engagement for 3 straight months, and then all of a sudden, it's like nothing ever happened. We are back to our lives and lives are normal. That is not in other countries. So we are actually punching above our weight diplomatically. Because since 1963, when Kenya got independent, name one single African who has single-handedly led a UN, AU missions across Africa to bring peace. You will only find them in Kenya. If it is in South Sudan, you will find Ambassador Daniel Rachonyomboya, who began the negotiations all the way, left it along the way for Ambassador Dr. Sumbeiwo, who carried it and delivered victory or independence to South Sudan. If you go to the western part of it, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Namibia, Angola, we have a Lieutenant Retired General Ishmael Opande. Some of the icons in this continent are Kenyans. The Raila Odinga we are speaking about today, when Ivory Coast was in turmoil, he was the man who was picked by AU to go and bring. So Kenya is not punching below its weight. Kenya is punching rightfully, and at times, I suspect, above its weight. And that is where now we need to review. Where we are punching above our weight that brings us a problem is where we need to review and find a better way to punch.
What do you think, Bwana Stephen?
I think we always go back to Kibaki's tenure as a lighthouse of where we should have now taken over from the 24 years of challenge that we had. We will go back to that history because basically then we will, we can keep singing about it, but we need to move on. Now, Kibaki, what Kibaki's tenure had was the respect for professionalism and the respect for, like the technocrats. It reminded me of post-independence cabinet ministers. You remember the Kenyatta cabinets, okay? People in foreign affairs like Munya Waiyaki, they were all inspiring. Tomboya, people, they were really heavy names. Jonjo. Those names still sound today because they were people of substance, okay? If you're given a docket, they really took it up. And I think that is the kind of leadership that Kibaki was trying to emulate, so that when he got people in positions, okay, if you're talking policy and planning, you put in someone like Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. I mean, even when you go to international, he's respected. So you don't just look at political considerations. Of course, those are there. But even if you're going to employ your own brother, let your own brother be. People just say, okay, fine, we accept that he's your brother, but we let it go because he's the best guy for the job, you see. But now you employ your brother, he's an underhead from some place, and then you simply, because of nepotism and favoritism, okay? So I think what we need to do is to get our act together and have governance that is, substantive. And diplomacy will not happen in a vacuum. The vibe that we have here is what is going to exude outside there. So if we don't fight corruption, for example, and then people, you see like now Nigerians, even as they try to punch whatever, they are people who are marked, they cannot go to some countries. A Nigerian going to China, even if he's innocent, is already a red flag. They are going to scrutinize him a lot. And Kenya, we are getting to that point. Because of the culture we have here, we cannot be trusted, see? So your documents are double-checked and all that. But if then people like Egypt, they're respected because they're known they're not corrupt. They are people who have certain virtues, okay? And so and you can see even in Europe, you can see the kind of citizens that they want in their countries. People like Germany, they don't talk a lot, but they let a lot of Syrians come in. because they knew that Syrians will not bring a lot of, I don't know what can I call it, I don't say shenanigans, yeah? But there are people who are going to come and integrate quietly into their society. So the vibe that you have in this country is what will make or break your reputation out there, okay? And so, again, beggars cannot be choosers. We have to have something that gives us clout.
Yeah.
If you look at South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, they are rich countries, okay? Forget that maybe there's a lot of discrepancy between the rich and the poor in those countries, but as a country, their GDP is quite high, and they have resources that they can, and Nigeria, of course, is massive. It has a lot of oil and so forth. So people will just tolerate Nigeria because they are getting oil from it. But if they decided to pull the rug, if Nigeria didn't have anything, it would be a banana republic if we didn't have oil. But as it is now, they have a lot of oil that is being stored and so forth. So diplomacy, at the end of the day, has to come out in a way that, like they say, charity begins at home. So don't go there in the international arena and, blow up your trumpet or try to thump your chest. And then people will say, okay, let's see where you come from. Then they say, oh, please, here you have you have no example to set for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And what a way to close the conversation today. I've been speaking to Stephen Ndegwa, Executive Director, South Dialogues, and as well as an IR expert. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us. There has been Gordon Opande, Kachona, an IR diplomacy and IR expert as well. We started with Gordon Othiambo. Apologies for that. As well as finally Maina Miruri, a diplomacy and IR expert as well as former MCK chairman. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. My name is George Maringa. Thanking you for your time and for your feedback as well. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another. I'll see you next time.